Hello, everybody. Today we are inside.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hello, everybody. Today we're inside Chelsea's garage where he's fabricating stuff. He has all of his race car stuff.
I wouldn't call it fabricating.
Here is his.
I'm good at gluing.
Here's his fancy new glue homemade model car project, his new Mustang. But we are here today to have a conversation. I like talking to people about stuff. Today's topic is we have been and we currently are in the golden age of drifting in the United States. We're going to chat about what that means.
That's a good way of putting it.
How to take advantage of it. And before that, I would like you to define, because you went to Japan earlier than I did.
Yep.
You went several years earlier. I think the first time I went was like 13 or 14, 2013 or 14. You probably went 2010.
The golden age was already over there.
Yeah. So what was the golden age of drifting? What was the specialty of it? And then I'll explain what was wrong with American drifting at that time and how we flip-flopped. So go ahead. Thank you so much to BC Racing Coilovers for supporting everything Drift Week does and Lone Star Drift. They are the most supportive coilover company in the world for drifting. Thank you so much. Drifting would not be the same without them. Thank you to ECU Master USA. They make so much standalone ECU stuff. Sensors, different parts. They make cool power distribution models. They do so much stuff. The driver, or the owner, Zach, drives with us at Lone Star Drift. He supports a ton of our guys. We really appreciate him and we really appreciate the product. Thank you so much. Thank you to Y Plate Imports. If you need a right-hand drive Japanese model car from over in Japan and you want it delivered and everything done turnkey and you just get an amazing JZX or some right-hand drive car you've always wanted, hit up Y Plate Imports. They have been in business for quite some time and done tons of cars and can take care of you. Hit up them and just ask some questions and stuff. That's good for that. And also thank you to Torco Oils and Fuel. They are supporting Drift Week. Thank you so much to you guys. We're going to be using their products on the trip. They make cool stuff and I'm super excited to have a new sponsor. Thank you, Torco.
And Drift HQ.
So I think my first trip to Japan would have been after
2010,
XDC.
I think.
Was it 10 or 9?
Because you went the year after D1 and I was super jealous. And we did D1 in 2009. We did a full season.
So it would have been 09 then, because it was the end of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went over there and that was probably the last year or two, and not to talk negatively about Japanese drifting. They had a very long golden era of drifting. And I think it was much more rooted because it wasn't based on social media. Mm-hmm. But
it was based on kind of social media because option videos and all the media is what did it.
I meant easily tangible.
Go ahead.
But yeah, we can dive into that some too. But yeah, so it was big enough over there that there's a company in the U.S. that wanted to shoot what it was like as an American going to Japan and competing in D1. I actually didn't get to compete. I drove some over there during that trip, but it was so gnarly. Like for me, I hadn't driven Formula D. I was still 3 years away, or maybe even longer, from when I actually drove Formula D. But like I went over there and was like treated like a king, and like drifting was booming and huge, and all the shops we went to was like, it was unbelievable. It was like how it was here in 04, 05, even 03, around that time for like street racing and drag racing and import stuff. Like I was like, holy crap, this is massive. And like everybody and all the companies we went to, the people that were running the companies had bougie ass daily driving cars. And like, I was like, man, I'm like, drifting is insane over here, it's booming. And then I think basically from that point on, it got to the point where it was really difficult to relate to in Japan. People stopped being able to, or people didn't stop. The rear-wheel drive cars became like unobtainable. They started to. And people think now it's hard to find a car over there to go drifting. It was like, you know, I mean, I'm saying it was just as hard back then, you know, like all the cars were tough to find.
Really?
Yeah. Even then when I went, they were like, oh, we're saving all of these because we see it coming.
Because they still felt really cheap. But
they were cheap, but still
relatively.
Not like, relatively, yeah. Because when I graduated high school, I started working for an import company, and we were bringing cars over and all that, and they were so cheap. I'm talking like Type X, S13. That was like a car that you would see now and be like, damn, look how nice that thing is. It's all original. It was like $2 grand, $1,800, you know? And I think even when I went over there, I was trying to buy cars and they were already like $5 to $7 grand for like the same car. So they had like tripled in value in just a few years. And now they're like 30,000.
So,
But golden age, yeah, like you were saying, I think that timing of when I was there was probably the turn of it.
so you described the feeling, like the emotional feeling and all these things and like what it felt like to be there during that time. Economically, I would think that what caused that was rear-wheel drive cars were cheap. The economy was really good there. Because of the way that their tax laws and stuff go, it forces a lot of those cars to be cheap.
Yep.
Because the government wants people to buy newer cars and everything.
Well, and all the cool cars were like still sub 15 years, you know?
Yeah, they were great cars and stuff. And Japanese was kind of like NASCAR, or not Japanese, D1 was kind of like NASCAR here. You would go places like up garages and see posters, and you'd go to Super Auto Box and you'd see posters on the wall of
cutouts
people like
of the drivers and all that stuff.
There was a lot of money in it. They were in a growing economy, or an economy that had just been growing. There was a lot of weird things that went with it, but the biggest part that I think made the golden age of drifting happen there was a lot of money being put in by companies. Cars were cheap. There was a plentiful amount of tracks that were allowing drifting, which were probably a lot of karting tracks that were being converted
and
over.
Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, they had amazing.
As much as I'd hate to say that did obviously help our sport massively, for sure.
They had a bunch of toge roads through government subsidies of like mountain roads all over the country that people went to. They didn't have cops that were chasing them down originally, I felt like. Because like when I went up there and we went to toge stuff that was illegal mountain drifting, everybody was talking how it's a $10,000 fine and this and that. But we were so far removed when you were up there.
Yeah.
You're an hour and a half.
From anything.
And when I say an hour and a half, it would take a police officer 3.5 hours to get to the location where you're at or something like that, and then 3.5 hours to get home. They couldn't even be on the same shift, literally, to go bust people and do stuff. So
it would have to be planned.
Yeah, it was difficult for that because you're so far removed. We didn't see any other cars up there. So anyways, although
the first time I was there, we went up to the mountains, and it was like, no worries, no nothing.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe before they started busting everybody that was drifting in that downtown area, the red, like, painted roads.
And theirs was fueled by option videos,
Yep.
and Initial D, and anime stuff, and like cultural stuff. And that was all the stuff that came together to make their stuff. So I think that's what defined it.
Yeah, I think they kind of owned it too.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, the culture aspect of it. I kind of look at it as like, America is like NASCAR. Like Australia tried to do NASCAR for a little while. Like all the other countries have done it, but like America is NASCAR. And I think that from the early '90s all the way through, like a 20-year hit from like till like when I was there, that was like their opportunity to build something like NASCAR. So I think that they put a lot more effort into it, and there was a really good balance of the people that were like business minded and wanted to grow a business based on drifting, and also the people that just wanted to go street shred for the weekend and have fun. So it was like a good like I guess you would say like organic type of situation, and then someone who loved it and helped it grow,
All right, so before we get to the American side, now let's talk about the decline of their scene, I think. We can just briefly do that. I would say what probably ended the golden age of Japanese drifting is they still have those tracks, so that's not the problem. The drivers just weren't being replaced with younger people, so you don't have a lot of young people coming in, so you don't have a lot of advertising dollars.
Well, we talked about that
too. And the cars got too expensive.
Yeah. Well, just even touching on the drivers not getting younger, there was people getting into drifting and driving, but the competitive ones and the cost of entry barrier to be able to do it was hard. And a lot of times, like when I went there, even in 2009 or 10, whatever that was, they were explaining to me that like, oh, it's not cool to have a manual car. Like that's awful. It's like, and they're like, it's already becoming not cool to own a car. Because like you should be using public transit. And there's so many people and this and that, and like, that is a real thing. Obviously, like if you drive to work and 40 people are driving to work, 40 people could fit on a bus and go to work and have one footprint aspect of it. And obviously, in some of the cities over there, it's pretty overcrowded, similar to how it's becoming here. But I think that had a part of it too. The culture was like, oh, you have a performance car, like. You're like, it's like having a tattoo now in Japan. It's like, you don't do that. Like, why do you have a performance-based car,
So it wasn't just economics and other things. It was also societal norms.
I think that obviously had a huge play in it as well.
Right. I like the idea of attacking it from the societal norms, though, because America is almost kind of getting like that right now. And we could talk about that for 1 second. this is actually a
Scary.
whole nother video, is
Yeah.
rolling coal with diesels ruined the entire car industry
did.
and is getting everything shut down. And something as simple as that, just societal norms looking down upon that. Before, for decades and decades with American graffiti, car culture was like renegade, punk rock, whatever. It was different, but it was kind of cool. And it was James Dean, and it was, whatever, kind of gritty, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But now car culture is becoming frowned upon, and we're going to be evil humans within probably 10 years.
Well, I think it's already
And that happened
happening. Yeah, and that, right, exactly. I think that's a part of it. Like I was explaining, it's like, I think it became like a society type thing where it was like, it's easy to get into something and want to do it when it's cool and popping off and everything. It's not easy to get in and do it when it's frowned upon. And that's kind of where we're getting at now. It's like all the cars, all the things in America are kind of moving that direction.
Before we jump into that, so to finish off the definition of the decline of the golden age of Japanese drifting, do we cover everything?
I think so.
Sai, you're listening to us. Did we cover it?
You covered like a very small part of it.
Oh, I mean, there's a huge part of
Yeah.
it, but like the simple, easy to relate things would be people frowning upon going up to the mountains, drifting, having a modified car, the economics aspect of it, where now you have to have a modified car, which you can't really have in Japan and drive every day. So now you got to have two cars, and the fact that D1 started getting very expensive at a time where this was coming down the other way, and I think it kind of leveled itself out, and I think it ended up being the people who got in that were able to finance it and find ways to do it are still to this day doing it, and it's still growing in that aspect, but I don't think it's growing as a whole,
Yeah. And
Which is kind of a bummer because the scene over there is literally like the most amazing thing ever.
the government almost subsidized drifting accidentally by making the cars so cheap. There was really good cars for almost no money, like an R32 or an S13, or even like a naturally aspirated S15. They were $500 to $1,000 US for a long time because the government was actively getting them off the roads.
I know.
So
I remember when we bought an S15 white, like mint condition, 6-speed NA, not turbo, for $750, and it had VSXXs on it.
the first time I
Like
was in,
the wheels are worth $2,000 now.
the first time I was in Japan, the Japanese guys were bringing S15 naturally aspirated cars with one set of coilovers to Ebisu and just trashing on the Minami jump. And then when it was so destroyed they couldn't drive it anymore, they took the coilovers and put it on the other S15 they brought.
But they
and
left
drove
the
that.
motor, everything in it, didn't give a crap. Like it was nuts. Like I don't think I ever got to that point. I was always a little bit too frugal, but like I remember American drifting even being like that too.
Yeah.
Like in the whole missile crisis years, people would just buy shitty cars and just go drifting. I mean, people still do it, obviously.
Oh, one other thing we should say. The cheap cars back then were actually really good too. They were low mileage.
Yep.
So when you said the missile car crisis here, that was more about like terrible cars that were at the
These were
end of
nice
life.
cars.
Yeah, they used to actually be really good cars for that amount of money. The cars were still relatively fresh. They were, 70.
I remember buying them and saying like, "Oh, we're saving this from getting destroyed in Japan, and we're gonna put it on the street here." Gray market as hell.
That's a pretty good definition. Now let's jump over to the American side. I will say originally we were not in the golden age of drifting in America because every car that we tried to drive was terrible condition car that had so much deferred maintenance that it was falling apart the entire time. We felt that we had to swap everything to get the type of, engine and power and platform. And we weren't happy with anything we were doing because of the mindset we had that we couldn't use American cars or anything we had. We had to have something Japanese.
Let's also take a step back too.
Okay.
15 years ago, right? Think
20
about
years ago.
Right. Think about what cars were cheap then. They were cars that people can't even drift today still, right? Because we didn't get a lot of those cars. Like when we started drifting, an S13 was only 10 years old, right? An S13 was cheap when we started drifting, but an S14 you could still go finance one, because they were only a few years old, right? But if you think most of the cars we would have been able to get for cheap and that already had a performance aftermarket outside of S13 and stuff would have been cars from the 80s. What cars were good from the 80s in America?
None.
Awful.
A Mark III Supra was not very good.
Which
it was
is
a
different
7M.
now, which helps our golden age thing, where all these cars that were built from early 2000s to 2015, those were cars that had big motors, lots of power. They actually had rear suspension links and like other things in American cars that were good. Mm-hmm. And like LSs and.
So things that were cheap were terrible E30s.
Yep.
They were not, like they had no power, they weren't good. KA240SXs with a lot of deferred maintenance.
Had to swap
typically. Them. 80s Japan cars, which weren't very good, and there weren't very many manual ones, I don't think.
And they didn't really have aftermarket support.
Yeah. Mustangs and stuff, but we weren't taking advantage of them at the time.
Yep. We didn't know.
Corvettes we didn't really know
Also,
about.
not to like dog on the Mustang thing, but back then, I think I was like, I would never drift a Mustang. Mm-hmm. That's like the only car. I'm like, why? It's like Camaro, Mustang. I would never drift that. And you're
when
like,
JR started driving one in Formula D, everybody was like, oh, his career's over.
It's over.
That was the dumbest thing he's
and then
ever
we're
done.
like, wait a second, they work.
You're like, oh
but
my God.
it took everybody like 5 years.
It came with all the money, too.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
so-
not all the money, but
So
yeah.
the definition of before the golden age of drifting in the United States was the cars were terrible. We didn't
Yeah.
have the available cars
So,
for
well,
cheap.
when did you think that-
We didn't have money from corporations pouring into the sport.
Yep.
We didn't have track support. Tracks would not let us on their property.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Everyone hated drifters. Mm-hmm.
Rightly so.
Even but like
We were awful.
even if it was like us back then who were like paying attention to things, wouldn't wreck a track. We were always like kind of the few people that were like stoked on being able to be allowed places and saw the bigger picture. But yeah, I mean, up until probably 2000 and this was kind of going into my question, was like, when do you think the golden age started, right? So I think up until like maybe 2012 or 13, tracks didn't even want you drifting. And that's pretty recent, you know, like we were already drifting for 10 years at that point. I remember like, they're like, oh, drifting, like skid racing, you know, like we're not gonna let you do that. Like, why would we let you do that on our track? That's stupid, you know? But yeah, I think that like I was going to ask you, when do you think the golden age of drifting started?
For myself, I think the golden age of drifting in the United States started right around 2015. And I think that might be a little bit different for everyone, depending on your location and stuff. I've been hosting events since 2003. I don't think until 2015 we got the amount of I
don't know. I think it was before that.
Well, I was just going to say from my perspective.
I feel
So
like you
I
were
think-
even having big events with lots of people and being able to do multiple of those a year and having people show up that knew what drifting was already. Obviously, people that didn't as well.
That was
I
the
think that-
lead up to it. And I think
Okay.
it really blossomed right around 2015. And I think the reason is because the track started opening up. We had the finances to be able to do stuff. We started to understand that cars could be simplistic.
Yeah.
And not just one or two people, because I'm sure there was always people that understood that, but the vast majority of people started to do that. I think Formula D, everyone before that was going for a Formula D Pro-Am license, and around that time period, I think people started to understand that that wasn't the end of drifting for everybody,
Yeah.
that they could go find a different thing.
And
I
have a
think
different avenue.
Yeah, grid life exploded, Texas Street Legal got created. I started going to Japan and like it was opening up my eyes. I was doing a lot of different things. And I think that for a long time, drifting was very one-minded for a lot of people. I think that the people growing up in drifting started to have better paying jobs around that time.
Yeah, I was going to say that I
the
think
economy took off.
the stack of efficiency from
Yeah.
a sport, from a individual person driving it, like all of that, the efficiency just got much better. I think a couple more. I think by then everybody had knuckles and a handbrake. Not everybody, but everybody. Most people had them that were taking it serious. Like, I remember going to events, like even recently I've had it, but like you show up and they're like, oh, my handbrake doesn't work, or
You're like, what are you doing?
oh,
with
I
your
have
life?
an open diff, right? It's like because of social media, because of the knowledge, because of so many people now getting into it, like there's only like one or two people that show up to an event that didn't realize that they needed a handbrake and a locking diff, you know?
Yeah.
But when we started, it was like, oh, you have a limited slip, that's cheating. Like,
And then E36s and 350Zs got really cheap.
Super
and all
cheap.
the parts were available for them. You
Yep.
could get M3s for $2,000. It was not uncommon. You
Yep.
get 350Zs for $2,000. It was not uncommon.
that's still
And-
now.
Yeah, but
The
you know what I mean.
350Z
It
is
wasn't-
really the only car left that's cheap
Yeah.
because they're so awful.
And G35s.
Yeah.
But they're tanks. They last for. Oh,
They do. I just mean they're awful
then
in terms of like people. They have a bad like stigma to them.
The biggest thing that saved drifting, I think, and this is very odd because there was a bunch of things going against drifting. I think forum support actually hurt drifting in a lot of ways. Everybody's like, you can make 400 horsepower in your car safely and reliably on an SR and all these things. And you're like, yeah, you probably can and stuff. But everyone listened to them and went out and ruined their cars. And they didn't understand they should leave everything stock for the most part. And everybody's going to yell at me, Aaron, you always harp on this. But anyways, that's just one of those things. Forums helped ruin stuff.
It is so funny how there's like a smaller group of people that are like, oh, just keep it simple and go drive and have fun and enjoy it and then like grow as you need to. Then there is like, build gnarly car, smash hammer into ground and find out the solution later.
Which is what we all did, by the way.
We all
did that, yeah.
I don't know if I did that, maybe.
Yeah, you did. You turboed that E36 M3.
Yeah, that motor was the same motor I went into FD with.
I know, but you still were trying.
450 horsepower.
Anyways, your Miata.
The reason why I had power is because we kept going to these tracks that required a bunch of power.
Like that.
So I kept turning the power up until I could drift these tracks.
I just texted myself so we could talk later about the Indy thing.
Oh, yeah. I think we've talked about that, though.
Oh, maybe we did.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that.
And then the biggest thing, I think, is YouTube. YouTube opened up everyone's eyes. So you could, send a track video of what we're doing. So they'd be like, oh, that's not so bad. And then the tracks would also be seeing that, and they'd be like, oh, there's a lot of spectators there. We would like those people there. They would just, it was like, it was
I mean, often we probably, I don't know about you, but I get reached out to all the time, like, hey, can you throw an event at our place? Just because they want to find another way to subsidize their costs of running a track. Like, owning a track is awful. If you ever think about, oh, I'd love to own a track, I would never want to own a track ever.
It locks you into one place.
And it's so expensive, and the equipment and all that crap, but we're getting sidetracked. But what I was saying is, like, I've been contacted by people, hey, we want to run a drift event here, let's run a drift event, like, you seem to know what you're doing, like, can we run an event? You know, and I'm normally like, I don't know if you're ready for that. but to be honest with you, like, that was never a thing. Previously, it was like, oh, you want to do what here? Click. Like, and then you call back, and you're like, are you that asshole drifter kid? And I'm like, nah, I want to do a autocross with sliding. Like, you know, you're the asshole drift, click, you know. But now it's like everybody wants a piece of the drifting, and that's, to me, the most important part of the golden age and what we're doing right now. And like, I feel as though the opportunity is so large for people who want to take it. And if you don't want to take it, the knowledge base is so big that you can enjoy it without investing your whole life to figuring it out. That's the biggest thing. Like, we invested our whole lives to figuring it out.
Yeah.
And we've just figured it out.
I haven't, but.
Well, I mean, you've done pretty well, though. I mean,
I'm trying.
You're able to go drifting and do what you want and enjoy it and not feel like you have to get to the track and drive every single lap possible.
It still would have been easier to be a doctor than this.
Oh, for sure. For sure. 100%.
Not to knock doctors, but this was hard.
No, like, yeah, I mean, it's just a good example.
There's thousands of doctors in the world, or millions, and there's only like 50 people in the world that make drifting work.
Yeah.
Okay, so all these things go in, and that's what creates the golden age of drifting in the United States. There are some people that would argue that the cars are getting too expensive, but an E36 M3 that maybe has a salvage title but has everything to go drifting is still, even if you're like $8,000 for one is super expensive, that's still cheap for a drift car.
It is.
Real cheap.
And the grand scheme of it is, like, back in the day when we were starting doing this, right? Like, we spent $8,000 in shit that we didn't need to spend $8,000 on, like, because we thought we needed it and we don't. So, like, nowadays you're like, okay, well, I mean, you can use any car as an example, like S197. You're like, buy the car. Like, I feel like, and again, not to be the Ford Mustang guy and all that, but I think the Mustang and the Corvette.
He's paid to say that.
No, and the Corvette and like some of these other American cars are part of the reason the golden age is becoming so good.
Absolutely.
And to me, it's like, everyone's like, oh man, you're gonna go drift a 2015 Mustang? I'm like, yes, because they're $9,000 and like with maybe a little bit of damage or not messed up interior or salvage title. I'm like, it already has a diff. It already has a great transmission. It already has a motor that with bolt-ons makes over 400 wheel. It's a tank. I mean, like, you cannot destroy them. S197s are like down to 5,000 and they already have a diff and they have a decent motor if you get a Coyote one. They have a good gearbox. And you're like, damn, and like, or you can go the route of like E36 M3, where you're like $5,000 or $7,000 for one. SLR kit, it already has a diff. You put a handbrake in it. You would drive it, you're less than 10 grand into a car that rips. And now that all these go-kart tracks all over the world, that's the even bigger part of the golden age, because now you don't need a shitload of horsepower. And you can make anything work if it has angle, a locking diff, and handbrake. Like, that's like the beauty of park. I love it because I could go buy a 60s Celica and put a Beams motor in it and add angle to it, and it will be sick and keep up with an FD car on that track. Like, all these smaller tracks and all of those types of owners getting together and having events, like, makes it so you don't have to spend a ton of money on a big car. You know,
and
like
originally for drifting, everybody just got excited for the bigger and bigger and bigger tracks, and we just wanted to go faster and faster and faster. And I think that was a big detriment to us because we were escalating the cost of everything as we did that.
For sure.
You get to a fast enough track and you're like, I don't want 300 horsepower.
Well, yeah, so like we're going to Drift Week, right? And we're doing that in a couple weeks or whenever you release this video. And I'm like, okay, I want to take my Pennzoil car and drive it. It's 500 horsepower Mustang. It's heavy, it's big, but it works really, really great. And I'm like, I want to bring that on the first half of the trip because I can't drive it on the street, unfortunately. But I do want to do some street driving and have fun doing that. So I'm going to bring that car because the big tracks are all on the first half of the event. So I'm like, I need more. Like my TI would struggle at Seattle at the Monroe track. Like it's the bank and
we're
the
not
bigger.
doing the big bank.
Oh, we gotta do the big bank.
Well, you can do the big bank.
We gotta open the bank up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like I'm like, okay, I want to bring that for the bigger tracks and the bigger things and all that stuff. And then like when we go to like the kart tracks and all that, I'll have the TI. This was hopefully gonna be a thing, but unfortunately, it's not gonna be a thing yet. It's close, but it's not gonna be a thing. But yeah, so it's the same thing. It's like, oh man, like I'd love to go drive some of these tracks, and I'm like, but I don't have a big track car anymore. Like, I'm building this to hope that this with 450 or 500 horsepower will do that because it's so light, and I think it will. But like, the evolution of it is like these big tracks are just, they require so much car and so much everything that like, that's why this whole movement of kart tracks and smaller, more technical tracks that are more fun even than the big tracks, and they don't consume as much tire, and they don't need as much car, and like everything, So I think that's part of it as well.
Okay.
The tracks of being available.
So we've designated what was the golden age of drifting in the United States now. We did the pre-golden age drifting stuff.
Yep.
So we talked about that. What's going to be the downfall of it? I think I'm going to let you talk first.
And I'm curious to see what you think the downfall of it is.
I think the downfall of American drifting is going to be, kids don't care about the drifting. But I don't think that's going to be a problem for a long time because our core demographic of drifters is probably right now about 25 to 40 years old, maybe really about 25 to 37 or so. I think that those people have good jobs.
You just wanted to cluster yourself into that group. I saw you.
No, I put myself on the outside of it now because I said 37.
I know, that's what I said. You were like,
yeah.
You reached for it, and then you're like, there's not that many people as old as me.
No, he's making fun of me.
I'm catching up to you, though. You're 34 next week, dude.
You used to be super young compared to me. Now, once you get older, just time compresses.
Yeah,
and
I mean, that was the whole thing, too. Is like I was always the youngest person when we were doing this. And up until maybe 2012 or 13, I was one of the youngest all the time. And now I'm the old dude at the skate park.
Oh, my hip hurts. So yeah, I think that the demographic is not going to affect, like the age of the average drifter is not going to be a problem for at least another 10 years. So I don't think that's going to be an immediate decline. I don't think the cost of like manual transmission cars will be a factor for at least another 10 years. I don't think tracks are going to be a problem.
It's becoming a thing, dude.
Well, no, because there's a lot of cars that are still in the downward depreciation part. Corvettes are going back up.
Yeah.
Mustangs are going down. Like, there's a bunch of BMW chassis.
Well,
like
the beauty of the
E90s
Mustang thing and why they're coming down is there were so many of them made.
Yeah. So I don't think there's going to be a problem.
So many people slightly wreck them and get rid of them. So there's that too.
And then they sit in fields.
Yep.
There's still a ton of Corvettes that just get packed away in garages, and as those boomers die, as the boomers die, those things will slowly,
or move on to their Crown Vics or whatever.
Yeah, will slowly come out of storage and get sold. So they're not they don't not exist.
Yeah, I think there's enough of them
maybe
still.
C7 Corvettes that'll be good. Maybe C8 Corvettes will be good. But those things will depreciate and everything, I think. I don't know. There's a bunch of questions on that. But I think that the cars are not going to be a problem for at least another 10 years. They could be. I think that maybe government regulation could be. I don't know if that's really true, but we are going to see the end of the internal combustion engine in the United States.
In our lifetime, I think.
Well, even maybe within the 10 years.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe
that.
it
I don't
either.
believe in. I sooner think it's going to be harder to find a manual gearbox car to go drifting in before they get rid of that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I do think that'll be downward spiral. I do think that maybe with all of these like companies like ISR, Injuku Racing remanufacturing lots of parts on cars and stuff, it may be profitable enough at some point.
The whole Japanese 25-year program where they stop manufacturing parts for their cars after 25 years is so scary. Like, I thought it was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be impossible. But then I started thinking, like, when you go to AutoZone and go buy a part, it's never the OE one anyway.
Yeah.
And those people don't stop supplying them, right? So it'll only be some parts, that will be hard to get OEM-wise. Like, you've seen, obviously, the big move of, like, gearboxes and stuff that you can't buy them new anymore from, like, Toyota or any of those companies in Japan. So that's part of the deal. What's up? Say hi.
I'm trying to work.
Pup, come here. Come sit over here.
I also think that we had a golden economy for quite some time, too. And that our economy could tank as well. Like, our economy's nuts right now.
Let's not talk about that.
Right. So we could see something crazy like that.
That would be the dark ages.
Which would cut out a lot of the programs like Ford necessarily or stuff like that. By the way, I could see Ford suddenly just being no marketing money is being spent on internal combustion cars or racing products like that, and it all has to go electric, and drifting doesn't fit that mentality. Like, something like that could flip a light switch really quickly.
I think most of those car companies work on 3 to 5 year plans.
So you don't have to worry about it for a while?
I think that I don't think we have to worry about it really anytime in the near future.
He's like, because I have a contract signed.
No. Well, so we're also diversifying too. Like, we have the Mach-E 1400, which is kind of a movement to see, like, if something like that is capability.
Would it drift in Formula D?
I think that package could. But I think, like, obviously, we all know how electronics are. We're like maybe two battery recycles and build outs away from having something that could run Formula D.
Okay.
Right now, it's just a little bit unobtainable to get a battery pack and a motor combo. The motor combo can make all the power, and the battery packs can last as long as they need to, but both of those together are still pretty hard. So the Mach-E was a really good stab at that, and I think it's a huge success, I believe, in that movement. But yeah, I mean, you're talking
all the teams and stuff can't do that within the next few years.
Right. I think that if somebody wanted to go electric and in Formula D and be competitive, we're probably 3 to 5 years out on that.
I thought we were 3 to 5 years out 3 to 5 years ago.
Oh, really?
I made a video about it. And then I realized, you're like, man, these teams, like, they work real slow.
Well, not only that, also in 3 to 5 years, the cars have, like, everybody has over 1,000 horsepower now.
Yeah. Isn't that Mach-E real fast, though?
It's gnarly.
Is it faster than your FD car?
It's not faster than the FD car, only because it weighs about 2,400 pounds, 2,500 pounds more. But
it's also all-wheel drive and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if we were running like 8th mile, it would beat my FD car.
Yeah.
But it's just like insane how fast it is. It's more of like just the power band and how you're like, dude, like, I've driven a bunch of Teslas, they're fast, but like they're fast only for the hit and first few seconds.
Which is where you are most of the time.
Most of the time. Driving. But like that Mach-E, even though it's like a big wall of air to move, it is just like non-stop pulling. It's like in one gear all the way to 150, and it doesn't feel any slower from 100 to 130 as it does from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
It's just the power, it's so much, you know?
So you define the downfall of drifting now, or the downfall of the golden age of drifting in the United States.
I want to say that there won't be a society within automotive industry, meaning like there's no part of the automotive industry that will not continue to fuel drifting in my eyes. Like, whether it's at a manufacturer standpoint, at a company that makes cut knuckles standpoint, I don't think any of that, as long as everybody keeps going the direction that we're going, I don't think any of that will have a downfall. I think it will continue to grow. I think the scary parts are the economics aspect of it from a U.S. nation, I feel like we probably are coming towards some times where there's going to be a restructure of a lot, and the restructure might leave behind funding and budgeting for certain types of things. I think YouTube is a double-ended sword. I think YouTube is great because these companies can get involved at a very, very grassroots level and reach a large amount of people that could potentially spend their additional income on parts because they have a disposable income and it's a direct window to them through a person or a few people. But I think also YouTube has a market where it has a bad presence of drifting to me. Like, I feel like a lot of the YouTube people that do drifting for fun and not like actually treat it as a career, it's just like a little hobby thing, they actually almost devalue drifting because I feel like they push people in the wrong directions and everybody believes everything that they say because they look up to them online or whatever.
Just like all the bad forum posts back.
Exactly. I think YouTube
All the
has
bad
that
advice.
bad advice aspect of it that maybe puts people into a position where they're excited about drifting and exciting to do it, but because it didn't work out the way it was on YouTube, or it's a false presence kind of thing where people get into it and they're like, oh, this is hard work, you know, or even they told me to build this car and not worry about any of the cooling system because it doesn't matter, and now their car overheats and blows up and now they can't afford to put a motor in or whatever. I think there's a lot of like
Or it's just like,
misguided.
they told me a naturally aspirated RX-8 is the best chassis.
Yeah, and you're like,
Which they're
no, like it's not, like, you know. So I think there's a lot of poor decision making based off what works on YouTube.
Okay.
So I think that could be the fall. And then also I do have a theory in my mind that, and it's a nightmare feeling, like I forgot my homework to do my homework and I'm walking into class, of like an EPA related thing that affects.
I think
what
we've
got
been
going.
on the verge of that for quite some time. We saw
Yeah.
it with SEMA.
The biggest
about
thing is
7
the
years
diesel
ago.
truck thing, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even explain to you, like, when someone rolls coal on me, I, like, pull up to a light, and I'm like, hey, man, I own a truck that I tow with and is modified. I'm like, but it doesn't have to roll coal, man. Like, you're really hurting the industry. Like, I love cars, I love drifting, I love motorsports, I love diesel trucks, and I'm in my dually with bro rims and all sorts of crap. Like, and they're just like, F you, brrr, roll coal, and you're like, damn it, like, you are going to be the reason why no one is able to own a car anymore that has a key that starts it. Like, you're gonna be the reason. And it's so upsetting that you're like, there's a million people out there that have dedicated their whole life to be able to do something in cars and motorsports and aftermarket stuff, and they enjoy the passion of driving a car, and you're gonna crush that just because you wanna roll coal.
I feel the same way about the street takeover
Yeah,
stuff
I
as
was
well.
just gonna say, I was literally
think
getting
that-
to that. That could be the death of all of our motorsports. All right, we need to move on.
No,
this is getting pretty
I'm just
heated.
ending it. I was gonna say at the end of all
I'm
of
just having
this,
fun with it.
I think that we have another good 5 years at least. We could
Yeah.
have the NHTSA guys and stuff for EPA because they are trying to attack SEMA right now and shut down lots of companies. I do think, if you have a VIN numbered car, you will never be able to turn it into a race car that has
I think
aftermarket engine stuff.
I think everybody's missing that aspect. I think that everyone's like, oh my God, we'll never be able to use our cars. I think it will just be when you've built the car, you have to turn in your paperwork.
No, you never are allowed to. That's the whole point.
No, I think you'll be able to just turn in your
No,
paperwork. And
if
you
it's a
won't.
VIN car, it's illegal to ever do
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
No, if it was built with a VIN, doesn't matter
I don't think
if
it'll
you
actually
deregister-
become that.
Well, no, that's what they said. They
I know,
said it
but
is
I think it will
always
be
illegal.
when it's become a race car.
This was
that's
the whole
it.
thing at SEMA like 6 or 7
Yeah,
years
I
ago when it was a
remember.
big deal. They said
It's
it's
still a
always
big
been that
deal.
way.
Every year it comes out back around.
So anyways, I think that we're probably good for at least another 5-6 years. I think everything's going well. Could keep going up, could go down. I didn't see YouTube coming as big of a thing with
Yeah.
influencers
Holy
as it was.
crap.
We
me
were making
neither.
videos
We
forever
probably
ago.
should have been doing that.
Right, but we just didn't understand what was going to happen. There could be something else like YouTube that blows up. There could be another type of like lifestyle event that makes things blow up, where we start doing festivals with cars and they start catching on.
I
There's
just
lots
hope
of
that
different things.
it doesn't become my whole life creates me into like a drug dealer. Not because I'm going to sell drugs, but because I'm going to have all these things that are drifting related, but drifting in motorsports is banned, and now I'm like hustling sway bars on the side and intakes.
Illegal sway bars.
Yeah. And intakes and motors and gearboxes and all this stuff.
Because you got to clear it all out.
I mean, no, but I'm just saying, you become that person that's like, now I have a school, and it's like the school of drift. We're like, on the low, you want to come drift? I got this, dude.
That'd be so silly. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine what would happen to all these tracks if that happened. I think about it from my own
But you got to think
perspective.
of the whole situation, like the government, we're going to shut down in this RPM Act situation. You're like, dude, like, they probably make $50 billion a year off of taxes sold off of parts and aftermarket industry. Like,
Right, but they're subsidizing at that same rate electric cars and other things.
Yeah,
that
but
kind of money is not a big deal.
But you
to them.
think that, like,
They're built to
because
spend
everything
it.
goes electric, it's going to stop people from wanting to go to the track and modify their electric car and do all this? And now you're not going to be able to modify it?
No, wait. Think about this. Wout from Amsterdam.
Yep.
And I talk all the time, and he's like, Aaron, if they want to stop protests or if they have anything like COVID related, instead of telling everyone to stay at home, they just turn everyone's electric cars off.
Yep.
They just flip a switch.
Yep.
It doesn't even come down to you
Not
being
me,
able
yo.
to
I got the
modify
hook,
them.
bro. I got fuel. I got that.
50 gallons left. So,
I got
but the point
50,
was,
100. I'm like, I'm ready, dude.
the point is they know where your car is. They can turn it off.
You
They
need
can do
some
all
spark
of those
plugs,
things.
dog? I got you.
They have that much control.
Yeah.
So it becomes a completely different scenario of you
But,
just
like,
modifying your car at home.
Yeah, but like you're gonna do that, but like there's no way there will be electric semi-trucks in the next 25 years.
I know, but it doesn't matter
But like,
about
so
us thinking
I'm saying
about
like
that.
everybody's hyper focused on, oh my God, this will happen. But dude, like I know obviously we're talking about it and there's a scare and all that stuff, and it will dwindle for sure, but it's not happening. In our
Think about
lifetime,
how fast Facebook and stuff popped up, or certain things. Even if it's 25 years away, the things will slowly change and stuff, and that's
For
what we're
sure.
talking about. We're talking about the end of this stuff.
Yeah, I do.
It doesn't matter the time.
in our lifetime, though, I think that we are looking at it being a large tax to own a gas vehicle. Like you're gonna have to pay to play. I don't think they're gonna basically ban it.
Yeah.
I don't
Could
think
even
so.
get cheaper for a while if people don't want them. But they
Trust
could also
me.
do another Cash for Clunkers program and just destroy them all.
Dude, think about how many drift cars we lost in Cash for Clunkers. Ugh, dude,
Probably going to do another one. They're talking about it right now.
dude, I'm here.
Okay, I think
Sign
we're
me
done.
up.
You have anything to say?
I'll give you twice as much as they're gonna give you for your Cash for Clunkers, dude.
But only if it's rear-wheel drive,
And
M3
manual.
badged, E36.
No, I don't even care. Anything rear-wheel drive and manual is my market
Your
right now.
jam. Okay, that's it. Thank you so
Everybody
much.
watching YouTube, don't support your local takeovers. Go to drift events instead. If you go to drift events instead, we can set up a place where you can do burnouts in the burnout box.
I don't want to mess with it.
No, I'm just saying.
All right.
Anything but takeovers, man. Anything.
We're the old people that won't let people do takeover. Oh, by the way, they're like, oh, I want to do that here. You're like, yeah, you can drift on track.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can just drift on track. We actually had a Hellcat.
They're like,
at our
wait,
last
no,
event.
I don't want to drift on
We
track.
had a Hellcat at our last
Sick.
event at GGP. It was hilarious.
Sick.
All right, that's it.
And he learned how to drift?
He already knew how.
Oh, was he a takeover kid?
I assume he had to be. He had a Hellcat.
Damn.
Isn't that the only way it works? Is you have some type of Dodge?
Hey, man, I got a Dodge. I don't go there.
Yeah. Okay, we're done. Boom.
Say bye,
End
Pop.
it. Bye.
Paw, give him paw. Oh, you can give me paw. How about dap? Can you give me dap? Give me dap. Nope. Oh, no love. Oh, she's like, I'll take a belly rub.
Bye.
Hi everybody, I want to say thank you for watching the video, and here is all the dates for Drift Week 3 out in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be out on multiple, I think 4 public dates. You can probably see them over here, and we're going to be drifting, doing ride-alongs, entertaining you guys, driving across the country, having people walk behind me. I'll see you there. Bye.